Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Sergiu, who's the CEO and co-founder of Index. And he'll tell us about Index later. But first, Sergiu, I wanted to ask you, what makes Central and Eastern European remote workers different than remote workers elsewhere?
Thank you, Gleb. Great to connect. Great to be here. So CE has about 1 million developers, software engineers, which is about I think give it or take 20-30% of the total population of engineers worldwide. So I think you have a big pool of engineers. Perhaps well educated and good background in maths and STEM degree. So I think those are kind of the main differences, and as well, what is different about CE is the cultural affinity to more Western Europe and then US as well. Compared to regions like, I don't know, LATAM or perhaps Asia. So I think those three key distinctions make CE a very attractive region for software engineering talent.
So basically, you can have very good talent at a lower rate than you would from Western Europe or from North America, but these are still people who are aligned with Western European values. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, yeah, and thank you for mentioning that as well. I think you have this arbitrage if you compare with, let's say, hiring somebody in San Francisco or somebody in London. You have this arbitrage if you hire them, let's say, in Bosnia or in Macedonia or Ukraine, Romania. Still a bit more expensive than, let's say, hiring in Asia, let's say India or somewhere around those countries. But then you get a great quality and a very high affinity to your culture talent.
Yeah, I think that's quite important. So I helped 21 companies transition to the future of work, hybrid work, remote work. Many of them chose to adopt fully remote, make some of their positions fully remote, and they've definitely been finding some good tech talent in Central and Eastern Europe. Now, I want to ask you, it's something we were talking about right before the show, is the resiliency of Central and Eastern European tech talent. Tell me a little bit about the remote workers who are right now working in Ukraine and Moldova and how they're dealing with the military situation.
Yes, it's very unfortunate what is happening in the region, and yeah, it's just there are a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and people. We have employees in Ukraine, and specifically for Ukraine, I think people try. I'm always talking and trying to understand what is happening and how do they feel. And majority try to sort of detach themselves from what is happening and try to stay resilient, do their work. They put a lot of hours. They're very hardworking people, and just the dedication and how they sort of switch their mindset from the horror that is happening outside to just keep going and act as normal, perhaps just to keep up their work and to disconnect from this unfortunate and very negative situation. And we also have a big part of employees in Moldova, and Moldova, I think, is also affected because it's not in NATO. It's the neighbor country to Ukraine, and it has a lot of anxiety within the country. There is just a literally today we were just speaking that a rocket, like part of a rocket landed in the territory of Moldova, which is unaccepted, and it's just echo sequences in the region. I think the entire region is kind of in war. I mean, Ukraine is fighting, and if Ukraine doesn't succeed, then I think it might go further. This war may extend, and that's why I think we just people feel anxious, and myself, my parents live there, so
Sure.
I'm worried a lot from what is happening.
Yeah, I still have some family in Kiev who definitely are in very challenging conditions there. I also have some distant family in Chisinau. We're not suffering, which is in the capital of Moldova. We're not suffering nearly as much as, of course, the people in Kiev, but very much frightened and anxious about the situation. Now, let's talk about, so we're talking about resilience. I want to talk about another aspect of resilience, which is a concern that my clients often bring up when they think about hiring people in Central and Eastern Europe is time zone differences. How do you find that remote workers in Central and Eastern Europe overcome this challenge? How would you calm down my clients who have that concern?
I think if you have perhaps companies in East Coast, specifically speaking about US, then it shouldn't be a problem. You get 4 hours overlap, so that should be sufficient. The challenge is if you are in San Francisco, then it's like 1 hour, maybe 2 if you get it. So West Coast is a problem. I think majority of our clients are actually in Europe and East Coast. With our US clients from West Coast, I have a high developers. So in our network, we have developers as well from LATAM region. So in that case, we would, if they want to match the time zone and have this overlap, then we'll suggest going into sourcing and finding candidates in, let's say, Colombia, Brazil, or perhaps Argentina. But then if they work, sometimes you would find developers actually even in Ukraine or in Poland and Romania that will be willing to work in night shift or more evening shift. And that's also a possibility. Nevertheless, that will reduce your sort of a pool of talent that you could access. But then you could find great talent that are more like night people and they want to work in the night. So that's also a possibility. As well, we see with remote work, developers reallocating, some of them moving into Spain, some of them moving more west, and then you have more overlap with the West Coast US. That's also another possibility to, I think the way when you open to remote work, it's the world is unlimited. You can hire anyone anywhere. And I think that's the beauty of the future of work, not hiring based on zip code and limiting your opportunity. So
now, so you hire this person. How do you make sure that they stay engaged? They're not part of your immediate organization, your immediate group in your zip code. So you never see them. Maybe bring them in, once a year for a summit, for all hands on deck sort of activity. But how do you keep them effectively engaged and loyal and make sure that they stick with the company if you don't see them daily? And especially if they're not from your time zone, not from your exact culture, even if they have an affinity to it.
Yes. So last year we hired about 100 sort of remote workers, and also in our core team as well. And we had a very good retention and engagement. I don't have the exact numbers, but about 80% will continue, will pass the trial, will be a full-time high-performing employee. The reason what we saw that works are a couple of things. So one is alignment on the vision and mission of the company. I think if you manage to, I think onboarding is key, or maybe I should start even earlier on recruiting and making sure the values that, or the culture you want to develop in the company fits with the profile of the employee, and also looking for more self-starters, more independent, more, maybe even more introvert people, because from our observations, introvert people love remote, and if they're more extrovert, they want to go to meetings, they want to go to office, and then you don't offer that, then they will be looking somewhere else for a job. So I think vetting, sort of matching at the initial stage, but then onboarding I think is key. Myself as a CEO, I managed to do every onboarding sort of meeting with new colleagues, explaining the mission, making sure they understand, and then reinforcing this mission, this values, this vision of the company. And that aligns people to a common challenge, to a common goal. And I think if you do it right, you get high engagement, because people stay in the company because of the challenge, because of the impact. Of course, take into account you pay them well, you have a good environment, but I think with remote you have to double down on those kind of engagement sort of meetings, better onboarding, but also the mission, the values, the vision of the company has to be much more reinforced in a way and developed. You should pay more attention to that because in the office environment, people copy, people get along, and it's easier to influence, and they feel part of this belonging because they go to an office, to a location. And in remote, you have this disconnect. So the only way to create this belonging and kind of sense of togetherness is through a goal or through a challenge, through a sort of mission vision. So I think you have to repeat that all over again and reinforce it in meetings, in weekly stand-ups, and Slack, or whatever channel you could get into communicating with your remote employees.
Excellent. Now, let's say someone is convinced and they want to hire a Central or Eastern European employee. Let's talk about where to recruit them effectively. And I know Index, your company, helps provide them. Most people go on LinkedIn. Tell me a little bit more about where most people are recruited, and then tell me about the difference that Index provides that might be a better option for some folks.
Yeah, I think for Central Eastern Europe, if you look to stats, I think the last stats are like 10% of people are on LinkedIn. So you really are missing a big part of the. So LinkedIn is one source, but then you are missing a big part of your potential source of talent. So LinkedIn is one place to go. Second is local job boards, but from our experience, they don't work much. I mean, you post a job, but then you have not so good applicants, or maybe okay, good applicants, but those stellar developers are not always on this. Maybe one in half a year you would find from those profiles that is outstanding. So usually great developers are not on job boards. So then what do you do? So another option is to go with platforms like Index, perhaps, like this sort of remote hiring platforms that you could get access through talent that is not always on LinkedIn, that is not on those job boards. The way we source talent, we find talent, is through referrals. So we have refer dev. So once the developer gets on the platform, he or she can refer a developer. So that's and the best developer or the best employee is the referred one, typically, because you worked with them, you know them, and then they're proven through time. So yeah, and then you could go with platforms like Index, because we also work with in-country sourcing. So we would have recruiters in those countries, or events, or community sort of events that we would get developers to sign or to join the platform. So that's I mean, you could do it yourself, of course, but then it takes you more sort of steps, and you have to have a dedicated team to build that sourcing channel. So I think where are we good at the top of the funnel in recruiting, on the sourcing, vetting, matching. So what else can you do? Maybe you could buy a software development agency if you want to scale fast. Maybe they already have the 20, 30, 50 developers. So that's another way you could hire them in an instant. But it takes capital, I guess. It takes some investment, and you have to find a potential target. Yeah, I think those are the main ones. And also in C, people, let's say they use Telegram, they use Viber, they use maybe not the typical apps like I don't know, Messenger or Facebook. You may find them on other channels. Maybe GitHub as well is a good resource, I think. Stack Overflow, yeah.
That's very helpful. So as we're winding up, is there anything else that you would like to share about Index or about remote workers in Central and Eastern Europe that we haven't yet discussed?
No, I think, yeah, that's in a nutshell. I think you have access to great talent. You have this arbitrage. You could reduce your costs or speed up your product development goals, because you would be just hiring better quality or more developers to hit your targets, your product development targets. And yeah, if you're looking for developers at Index.dev, we're here to help. We help thousands of developers in the region, and it's just we're feeling excited about the future of remote work. I think COVID just showed us what is possible, and hopefully the war will end, and the region will benefit more, and people will have more opportunities. And I think by creating this more remote work, we're just creating a better distributed world. In spite of hiring people just in one region and concentrating everyone there and raising the prices and houses and so on, we can create a more distributed world and offer equal opportunities for everyone everywhere. And I think this is our mission, and we're excited to build on this mission.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate you appearing on the Wise Decision Maker Show. And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you checked us out, and make sure to leave a review. We'll love to hear what you think, and it helps others discover the show. As always, my name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends. Okay.
Thank you, Gleb.